Who thinks we're on our phones too much? It has been so on my mind. I mean, I know we've been talking about this forever, but it's gotten to a whole new level that my brain is like the impact of what we're doing. I have conversations with my daughter about, I'm very present to the fact that devices are following us everywhere we go. It used to be, and I tell her this, it used to be that when I got in the car with my mama, it was just us. The best you could do to add anything was the radio. And now we've got a device that can connect to everyone and to everything. And I would tell her, like, even with shows, you could only watch them at home and you could only call someone at home. And not only that, there was only one time that one show was on. So if you weren't home then, They made you be the antenna. They made you be the antenna. But if you weren't home then, you didn't get it, right? And now, what is happening? Now, these devices and everything, it's all the time, right? And it's vying for our attention, right? And it's perfectly, because this is what it does. It's not, malicious, we can get into that conversation, malicious or not, but it's designed to make you want more of me. Want more, Stephanie? Let me get into your brain and tell you what you want to buy, how you want to feel. And I'm pretty sure someone has figured out how to think about what I'm going to think about next before I think about it. And I'm not even kidding you. Like, I forget what it was last night. There was something that I had been meaning to research for the longest time. And, I saw one thing, I saw the next thing, and there in the scroll, before my brain, my brain is going, I should research this. It didn't say anything out loud. And then there it is. It's up next. So I have conversations with her and I tell her, your generation is going to be called to have dominion over your being more than mine was. You are going to be called to have to decide what comes in and to have to tune into what you want and what you know and who you are more than ever before. Because think about the work that we do in unity and in new thought and in consciousness to get people in touch. Who's taken a workshop on what color is your parachute, or what do you want to do with your life, or how do you tune into what you really love? Who's gone to counseling to figure out if you should really be in that relationship that you're in or that job that you're in, right? Who's gotten professional help going And now here we are raising generations in something that is not only just being neutral, right? So that you have to kind of discover yourself, but that is actually telling you who you are, what you want, what to do next. So it is no longer an option to practice the depth of unity teachings and new thought. It is now a spiritual imperative. It is a spiritual imperative because our calling here is to be able to focus our attention on truth, on source, and on principle. And we are the ones that activate that power. That power can be latent our entire lives, yeah? That power can be latent for 50 years, 60 years, 70 years. And when that power is harnessed, when we wake up to that power, when we see it, when we know it, when we know who and whose we are, when we know what we're here to be, when we know that we are the light of the world and we're here to set the world ablaze with light, then we start digging into it and tuning into it. But the temptation to fall asleep has gotten great. Not that it wasn't always there, but it's like we are actually in a time that we are living the depths of what we teach. So put your eyes where your heart is. Put your money where your intention is. And put your integrity and your alignment where your mouth is. Is that not like a little nutshell of unity. We're getting ready to kick off a prosperity series. And literally, I've been, teaching in unity for over 20 years now. And I have never felt like it is a more important time to get the abundance principles in unity, the prosperity principles in unity. Never more than how I feel right now for myself, for others. I'm so excited about the people who are in this group with us, because this group is a group of people that come together for this practice, and you're invited to that. If you'd like to come, and those of you online, you're invited to that. But what it is when we teach prosperity and when we teach abundance consciousness is a practice where we look at how we think, we look at what we believe, and we look at how we act. Now, if anyone's a builder, you know that there is as drawn, right? As designed, and then there is as created. And they're different things. A lot of times our narrative about ourselves and our lives, when we don't do the deep work, when we don't do the deep dive, is as drawn. Like, here's who I am. This is what I think I am. This is who I think I am, right? Sometimes through the hard knocks of life, we have to look more deeply at our own behaviors, our own actions, our own integrity, our own alignment, our own investments, our own agreements. And we have to say, wait a second, if this is happening in my life, and I don't know where it's coming from, I might have some agreements, some actions, some activities that have led to something I am not willingly wanting to choose or create. So I look at that and I do a deep dive. Back to the phone. Feel free to get out your phone for a moment, because I'm going to ask you to write something down. And if you don't want to write it down, that's fine. You can do it in your mind. But if you want to, grab out your phone. You can either, I text people random things when I need to remember something and I just need to write it down first. It's like, oh, here's a weird text from Erin. And it's something we'll talk about later. You can open a note. You can open a text to yourself, whatever. Or you can just do it in your heart. What is your definition of abundance? Take a moment to breathe into that. What is your definition of abundance? And if it makes more sense to say prosperity, say that. What is your definition? Now just do a little check-in. How long have you had that definition? Have you had it for a while? Is it brand new? Check in with that definition. Is it based on any fear? Is it based on any history? Is it based on any lack? Check in on that definition. Is it a definition that you believe that everyone on this planet could demonstrate? That there is enough, right, of whatever it is in your vision that everyone could demonstrate it, or anyone could demonstrate it. And check in. Does your definition of abundance include others? Does it include something for the world? Is oneness part of it? We have a couple of people here, one in particular that I'm thinking of, that have taken every abundance prosperity course we've ever done. Like, every year they take it. And it's a good reminder to me, someone said this just recently, that prosperity practices and the principles, and we're doing this Sunday morning too, so don't feel like if you're not in the group, in the class, you won't get it, though I invite you to take the deep dive, but you'll get it because we're going to practice it, because there's so much here. But when we go into this practice, it's not a one and done. Someone said it's like taking a shower. You don't just do it and then be done with it and never do it again. It's something you do on a regular basis. So at minimum, to check in with ourselves once a year, and it's a great way to start the new year, to check in with ourselves, and what does this mean? What does it mean to me? How is it useful in my life? How can I co-create a world that works for all with my practice and with my principles as it relates to abundance? So what is your definition of abundance? And are you ready to expand it? Because we're here to look at our growth and our expansion. We're also here to look at and demonstrate our oneness through the practice of principles and to allow our ideas and our minds to expand. A lot of times we have the narrative about who we are and what we do and what we are. I was talking with someone about our nation recently and talking about the distinction between, as a nation, who we think we are, or the narrative around that, like what we talk about ourselves as versus what we do, and the history and the behind the scenes and all that. So it's like, that's everything. This is the macrocosm and the microcosm, right? It's out there and it's in here. So if we think what's going on out there isn't going on in here, we're missing a grand opportunity. Because we live in an infinite universe that is alive and awake, that is consciousness unfolding. It is the evolution of consciousness. And so if I want to just go, oh, out there, so uncomfortable, but in here, just a delight. Yeah, maybe, but there's also some things to look at in here. It's like, oh, if I can get that, how does that reflect what's going on inside of me too? What can I learn here? What can I get here? How can I look at the narrative I understand about myself or in my family or in my community, and the reality then of some ways that I show up, and how can I trade in and upgrade and expand? How can I clear out and let go of what no longer serves? How can I create a clean slate and be, as scripture says, like, have a clean heart, a clear heart, a pure heart, be born again in the Spirit? Because that's what we're here to do. We're here to have a clean slate and to be born again in the Spirit. So a lot of abundance work is about forgiveness. It's about visioning. It's about commitment. It's about reflection. It's about gratitude. And our definitions of abundance are things that when they are committed to, we begin to live into. And just by speaking them, just by creating the commitment, and when I say commitment, I mean commitment, not kind of half, like let's kind of half get married. Anyone ever tried to half get married? And then the government tells you, actually, you're really married in every way, shape, or form. There's no halving it, right? And something happens when you're committed. When you're committed, you begin to live into that commitment. And what happens? You begin to grow because you're forced to. But without that commitment, we can slide, we can swerve, we can move around things. We can manipulate our own minds and our own environments if we're not committed to a higher ideal. And the gift of commitment, when we are committed to a higher ideal, is that we give our lives to something more than ourselves. Not omitting ourselves at all in any way, and in fact, giving ourselves to what the highest and the best in us is. But without that commitment, we tend to live a life of monotony. We tend to live a life of consumerism. We tend to live a life that's pretty myopic, centered around ourselves and our own needs. Even when we know it's not the truth. Even when we know the truth is that we are one. But it takes action and it takes commitment. And those actions and those commitments together pressing us just a little more to grow into something greater than we have been before. So what are you committed to? And what does commitment really mean? And how can we begin to look at our world and at ourselves, not towards the narrative of what we say about it, but how we actually show up for ourselves, for our community, for our world? A commitment is a promise that we live into. It's one we stand by. It's not something that we say we're going to back out of, right? We're not going to back out of. And we know when we make a commitment, we know that I mean, part of the making of a commitment is we know some things are going to be hard, or it's going to be inconvenient, or I'm going to have the idea or the illusion of giving up for something greater. And so we're ready when we make a commitment. We're ready to be nudged a bit. We're ready to be pushed. We're ready to be moved. And you know what happens when we're movable? We're listening. We can receive. We can be guided. We can be directed. And if there is not anything else that is important on the planet, let us get this: to be listening, to be able to shift, to be able to be born again, to be able to be born into what's new. When we make a commitment in our lives, and certainly with an abundance practice, with tithing of our time, our talent, and our treasure, that means our time. It's like, am I going to give time every week, every day to the source of my being? Am I going to engage in spiritual reading? Am I going to engage in meditation? Am I going to engage in a wellness practice? Am I going to engage the silence? How will I commit my time? And then my talent. Will I make a commitment to give who I am to the world around me? To not just have it all come back to me. That I'm giving, but it's all with the intention of supporting me. But I am giving freely without the thought of getting. I am just moving myself as water moves through a river. I am an inlet and an outlet. So somehow this gift was born in me, and it is not mine to hold back. Think about that for just a moment. Some of us might think we don't have gifts. That's a lie. It's a dark lie we tell ourselves. Some of us think that if our gifts can be showcased, they're more valuable. Another lie we tell ourselves. There are abundant gifts within each one of us. Abundant. And they are not ours to hold in, because they were not given just to us. They're given to the collective. There's a reason we have those gifts. Mr. John Fry here in the front row loves music. He loves music. And you know what his love for music has done? Because he didn't just take it for himself and sit in his basement and play his guitar alone for himself. And he didn't worry about it when he used to be not so good. No, just kidding. I mean, I can say that just because I'm a singer-songwriter. So you know the times when you were like, no one should hear this, right? I'd have a practice with myself, do the third song first, because the first two were so bad. They were so bad, it was uncomfortable. Crazy Carl told me he'd never get up on this. I'm calling out today. Here we go. This is about commitment, and it's about being uncomfortable. He said, you're not going to get me up there, Rev. You're not going to get me up there. You know what he has done? On the Sunday that the power went out, he's out in the lobby on a chair playing music for you all and everyone on live stream. And if you remember the beginning of the pandemic, I did get a little bit crucified on a cross because I have a piece of artwork at my house that is a feminine piece of artwork. Does anyone remember it if anyone was here? Oh, look, you too. It's an angel. It was a headless angel, but there was a body. Anyway, I'm not even thinking a thing. On our very first Sunday of going virtual, Crazy Carl texted and was like, what are you going to do? What do you need? What are you going to do? What are you going to need? Because that's one of his spiritual gifts. What are you going to do, and what do you need? And I was like, well, it's a little much to figure all of this out in 1 week, and, you know, all I have is me for the music and for the talk and for the everything. And he's like, I'll come over to your house. And so I set him up inadvertently by the beautiful piece of artwork that I thought was so gorgeous. I know you're going to want to see it. Everyone's going to want to now know. Maybe I'll post on Facebook later. Maybe I won't. But there I sat, not even thinking a thing. I sat Crazy Carl right next to that piece of artwork, and then I delivered the sermon, and there we were. There was a togetherness. Oh, I did get some feedback, just like one or two pieces of feedback about that. And then after I looked up and I was like, oh yeah. That is a little interesting for a Sunday morning. But the idea is when we don't take the risks, what could I have done? What I could have done is said, my house is not clean. I don't have a studio. I don't have a place to do this. This is not possible. Right? I'm not qualified. I'm not capable. And instead what I did was I said, we need to turn on a dime. It used to be the people come to us. Now we need to navigate how to get to the people. And the only thing that matters is that we're together and we're in a collective conversation. That's the only thing that matters. And when you hide your light under a bushel, that doesn't happen. When you take your spiritual gifts and you think, oh, this is just about me in my living room, or this is just about me and sustaining my life on the planet, or this is about me and my ego and what I can accomplish, or what I can do, my drive, my power, whatever. It's like no one in their grave cares a hoot. You don't even have your body. You don't have your bank account. You don't have the magazines you were published in, whatever it is. You don't have the book that you always wanted to publish. You don't have any of it. You have your consciousness, and the consciousness that you spent with people and with the planet every day. You have who you were and how you showed up. And that's part of our principles. Our principles are not, and yes, I will speak directly to the corruption that religion has been in this world, to the manipulation that religion has caused, to the governance that religion has tried to seize authority of, from the manipulation with money and with offerings. I will speak directly to it. It's not good, right? We've seen what it does. There's nothing good about it. Except when it, helps people from not killing each other and stuff like that. Then maybe it's better to just scare them. Maybe not. We'll see. But there is a principle that has been talked about, that has been demonstrated from the beginning of time, that is noted in the Bible, that was discussed by the master teacher, that is a practice of circulation. Why? Because it's about oneness. And because unless I take the first tenth of my life, unless I take the first breath, the first bit of finances, the first bit of everything, the first bit of talent, unless I look at all of that and I say, this wasn't given to me, Erin, as an individual. This was given to the world. So how do I dedicate it, lift it up and out and circulate it so that I am an inlet and an outlet? And that is the spiritual practice. And that has nothing to do with church. It has nothing to do with religion. It has all to do with God and all to do with principle and all to do with demonstrating our faith and our oneness. Now, raise your hand for me if you have served anywhere, if you have volunteered anywhere. Would you stand? Would you stand? If you have volunteered anywhere, and if you're online, say where you volunteered. Put it in the chat. Put it on Facebook. Put it on YouTube. Now sit down if that hasn't been one of the best parts of your life. Thank you. You may be seated now. We think that we want for ourselves, but we come alive when we stop focusing on getting and we start focusing on giving. We recognize that we are safe and we are protected. Does anyone know anyone that's buying water or storing up any food right now or anything? Yeah, let's be honest. We're in interesting times, are we not? I had a little bit of minister fatigue. We're ready. How to say this, but we might as well just be real, right? We might as well just be real. We are at the place of, when the churches started closing and ministers started quitting and people started going, oh, what's next? And so much good comes from things being dismantled and things being unsettled because we look at what's important. Those are the things we practice. Those are the reasons why we come together. Those are the reasons why these conversations, why these courses, and why our circulation is important, because miracles can happen in that time. And also we can see a lot of dismantling and falling apart. So I did think to myself, I thought to myself, oh, do I have it in me to go again? Like, who wants to be? I mean, we have a conversation, thank God for us and how we do this, right? We know we have a conversation. I might be the only one talking, but we know we have a conversation, everyone. I know, right? I know. Poor me, I'm the one that it gets to come out of. But I was saying to myself, like, I can feel things coming, of things moving. There's so much change. And in times of change, in times of chaos, who wants to be the person with the voice here? But what is so incredible is us coming together to have these conversations. And don't you know we need this more than ever? Don't you know that every seat in this sanctuary is going to be full? I have girlfriends who have never gone to church. And you know what they're saying right now? I need to find a church like you do. I need to find a community like you have. I need to figure that out for myself and my family now. And you know what my mind does? Whenever I get into any sort of lack or limitation or fear and think, should I go get water? I'm kind of just kidding, but not really. Some of you really know what I'm talking about. Some of you are like, what is she talking about, this water? Then I remember the principle. It is about the law of circulation. It is about the law of mind action. It is about prosperity and abundance principles and getting them at a core level. And once you get that, friends, once we get that, we know the truth of this passage. I memorized it at one point when I took a class, and I memorized it to just bring myself in any moments of fear straight into it. And it was, fear not, little flock, for your Father has given you the kingdom. I would change it to queendom sometimes. But fear not, little flock, for your source has given you all that is needed. How many houses did Jesus, the master teacher, have? How many bank accounts? How many villages in control over with his own Airbnb ready for him? None. But what he had was circulation. What he had was practicing the principles. What he had was the knowing of the law of giving and receiving, knowing that the second I have a need, the crazy Carl will arrive and do the music. That the second the community goes into some turmoil, John Fry will continue his gifts and take them out and bring people together in incredible and creative and musical ways. That we will move through times when so many others close the doors, right, and say we can't do it. We will keep working on our consciousness and we will keep supporting each other. When we know these principles at depth, we know that there's no amount of water that I could save up to take care of or protect myself. That's the bad news. The good news is you are the living water. You are the water. All that is needed is to live the principles. All that is needed is to circulate our good to that which is beyond ourselves. And that creates a spiritual infrastructure. I believe that. I can't stand anywhere and say, tithe to your church because I don't know what, like something bad's going to happen if you don't? Or you're supposed to? I mean, sure, because I get it, because we want to keep UVC alive. But I can say, circulate your good, your time, your talent, and treasure, because you will learn the spiritual infrastructure of the universe in which you live, and you will learn a deeper sort of faith and a deeper connectedness. You will learn about yourself, you will learn about life, and you will learn about creation. Because we do, don't we? And when we do that, we set it on fire. From Luke 12, 22, 34. Do not worry. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. Life is more than food, and the body more than clothes. Consider the ravens. They do not sow or reap. They have no storeroom or barn, yet God feeds them. And how much more valuable are you than birds? Who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to his life? Since you cannot do this very little thing, why do you worry about the rest? Consider how the lilies grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you, not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the fields, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, how much more will God clothe you? O you of little faith, and do not set your heart on what you will eat or drink. Do not worry about it, for the human world runs after such things, and your Father knows that you need them. But seek his kingdom, and these things will be given to you as well. Do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give to the poor. Provide purses for yourself that will not wear out. Provide purses for yourself that will not wear out. A treasure in heaven that will not be exhausted. There is no thief comes near, no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, your heart will be also. Fear not. That's about where we come from. That's the depth of the principles, where we come from. Really getting our commitment. Doesn't mean we don't get water. What it means is that we listen to when we're guided, and we follow that guidance. If the guidance is give, then it's give. If the guidance is move, then it's move. Let's take this into a time of meditation. I invite you to just get comfortable where you are. And take your white stone in your hand. Gerda said, until one is committed, there is hesitancy, a chance to draw back concerning all acts of initiative and creation. There's one elemental truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans, that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and the meeting and material assistance, which no man could have dreamed would have come his way. But whatever you can do or dream you can do it, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now. So I invite you to take a few deep breaths where you are. Take your white stone in your hand. If you're at home, grab a piece of paper or a rock and just breathe into this moment. This is a Jerusalem stone. It comes from the Holy Land, literally, directly. Feel it. We breathe into it. We give it our breath and our gratitude. The stone represents a commitment. It represents a new chapter, like a marriage. It represents a transformation. It represents a release. It represents safe passage. It represents security, honor. From Revelations 2:17, it says, "To she who overcomes, I will give some of the hidden manna to eat, and I will give it to her. I will give her a white stone. And on the stone a new name is written, which no one knows except her who receives it." So deepening the breath, allowing the body and the mind to relax. Tune into your commitment. Being on this planet, being a soul in circulation. What is your life here for? And we allow our hearts to open. As we ask the question, who are we called to be this year? Walking into what is before us and calling upon what is within us. We make a commitment, a vow. We receive a calling that we can live into. In a moment, I'll invite you to receive a word, one word, a name. Don't be concerned about whether or not it is something that makes sense to you or you recognize. This has a long tradition, a spiritual tradition. A word is a sacred thing. Abram, as he grew in spiritual awareness, became Abraham, and Sarai became Sarah. Saul became Paul. In ancient Greece and Rome, jurors in court cases indicated verdicts they reached by depositing pebbles or stones in receptacles, or to reveal one from the palm of their hand to cast their vote. A dark stone reflected guilty, and a white stone represented not guilty. Off the hook, released, free. There was a time when white stones were given to Roman citizens to show identification. If anyone went to prison, their stone was taken away. If you're caught without a stone, you don't have your freedom. Stones were known as hospitality tablets, with a mark on it for the person who owned it. Half of a pledge or a contract or a symbol, sometimes matched another piece as a covenant between two parties. They would exchange a white stone and write their own names on it and give them to each other, or have symbols that were in common that they could just show that stone and it would say, "You're safe with me. My home is your home. I understand oneness. My family is your family." I stand with you and for you. I protect you in foreign territory. So right now we open our hearts to what our word is. And as you choose, write it on your stone. And simply hold that stone in a moment of silence. And so it is. Eric Butterworth said the goal should be to achieve consciousness, the consciousness through which substance will flow forth when and as you need it. This word is something that we live into, knowing that as we make the commitment to this word, all substance will move forward and move forth. I want to close with a piece from Sig Paulson. He said, "We fan the spark of a divine origin into a living flame by giving our attention to it and letting it reveal its nature and potential through us. Since our attention is word conditioned, we can direct it through the words we speak aloud or use silently. Honor your word. Namaste.